From Manila to the globe, this is World Newsfeed, bringing you the biggest stories shaping our times. Good morning, I'm Raine Musñgi. Let's dive into the headlines making an impact across the world. Early poll results are out and Republican Donald Trump is leading. The former president has 105 electoral votes so far, while his rival, Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris, has 27. 270 electoral votes are needed to win the White House race. Several states like Indiana, Missouri, Oklahoma, Kentucky, and West Virginia went for Trump, while Harris took Massachusetts, Maryland, and Vermont. Donald Trump says he's ready to concede defeat, but only if the elections were fair. The former president made that remark while speaking to the media as he voted in Palm Beach, Florida. Trump's campaign has suggested he may declare victory on election night, even while millions of ballots have yet to be counted, just as he did 4 years ago. The Republican bet has repeatedly said he'd only lose if there was cheating.
What do you say to those people?
I think they're crazy. If I lose an election, if it's a fair election, I'd be the first one to acknowledge it. And I think it's, well, so far I think it's been fair.
Well, shortly after saying he thinks the elections have been fair so far, Trump takes to social media to undermine the credibility of voting in the biggest city, the must-win city or state of Pennsylvania. Trump claims there's massive cheating in Philadelphia, where voter turnout has been exceptionally high, but he offered no evidence to back this. Philadelphia quickly denied Trump's allegation, calling it yet another example of disinformation. Kamala Harris visits the Democratic National Committee headquarters in Washington, D.C. on Election Day. There, the vice president thanked phone bank volunteers and even chatted on the phone with voters. Harris aims to make history as the first woman and South Asian American to win the presidency.
This truly represents the best of who we are. Just reaching out to folks, letting them know that we're all in it together, reminding them of the power of their vote through their voice. This is just the best. And I just thank you all so very much.
Heading to Missouri now, where severe flooding hit St. Louis on Election Day. The floods caused by torrential rains forced road closures, disrupted local transportation, and even the voting. One person was also reported killed. Bad weather in Wisconsin as well, with students at the University of Wisconsin-Madison braved the wind and rain to vote in their first presidential elections. They lined up early in the day to cast their ballots, eager to make their voices heard in the closely watched race to the White House.
It was good. It was exciting. I've never voted in a presidential election, so.
Voting was simple, somewhat more difficult if you're out of state, but I had an easy, somewhat new experience because I voted through a touch screen, which was nice. But I am very happy to get my vote out and vote Harris Wallace.
Well, college students in North Carolina were as excited to cast their ballots for the first time. Some of them barely slept the night before, but got up early to vote. Those who voted for Harris say they feared racial tensions would go up if Trump wins.
I voted for Kamala. I voted for her because since Trump was already the president, I know how he's gonna move and how everything's gonna turn out. We don't need no more riots, no more nothing. So I picked Kamala, and plus she's gonna be the first black female president. So that's also gonna be a big change.
A lot is at stake, actually. For me, as a black man, a lot is at stake because I know how Trump gets down and I know how Kamala gets down. I've done my research on Donald Trump, and I know he's not a good person.
Up next on World Newsfeed, we'll have the latest on the deadly flooding that hit Spain's Valencia region. Keep it here on BNC.
Americans elect their president by indirect popular vote every 4 years. The vote is held at the same time as elections for the House of Representatives and a third of the Senate. The election takes place on the Tuesday following the first Monday in November, which will be November the 5th, 2024, for the next election. Americans will choose 538 electoral college electors distributed among the 50 states, who then elect the future president. To win the election, a candidate has to gain an absolute majority, or 270 of the Electoral College votes. Each state has as many Electoral College electors as members in the House of Representatives and the Senate. California, the most populous state, has 54. The smaller states like Wyoming and the capital Washington have only 3, the minimum. The winning candidate in each state takes all the Electoral College votes in that state, except Maine and Nebraska, which distribute them proportionally. With this system, the states which are not clearly dominated by the Democrats or the Republicans are crucial to the result. They are called swing states, the key states which can change from one party to the other and have an impact on the election result. The list of swing states changes with each election. The swing states are the states which could tip the scales and decide the US presidential election. In these states, the outcome of the vote is uncertain, unlike the vote in Democratic or Republican strongholds. So candidates concentrate their campaigning efforts on these states. In Ohio, for example, the pendulum swung to a Democratic majority in the House of Representatives in 1984. It switched back to the Republicans in 1994, except from 2008 to 2010. In 2000, the very close result in Florida swung the presidential election in favour of George W. Bush. Then the state, after giving its electoral college votes twice to Barack Obama, voted for Donald Trump in 2016. The swing states change over time. In 2024, the main key states are expected to be Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, Arizona, and North Carolina.
And we're back. This is World Newsfeed. As many as 3,000 migrants from southern Mexico are headed to the United States on the day Americans decide on their next president. Immigration has been a key issue in the U.S. election campaign, with Donald Trump vowing strict border controls and tougher policies on migrants.
We have a destiny, and it is the only destiny God has prepared for each one of us. But we want to be there and fight. That is our purpose. If Harris wins the presidency, we will be calm, because Donald Trump does not want us there. I hope that Donald Trump doesn't win, because if he wins the presidency, all of us will be screwed, and we will stay here in Mexico working. Here too, they will make our lives impossible, because in Mexico, they don't want us either. They don't want to help us either.
On to the deadly flooding in Spain. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez says 10.6 billion euros, or more than $11 billion, have been earmarked for the victims of Spain's worst disaster in modern history. At least 217 were killed last week when floods hit the eastern region of Valencia.
La inversión total de todas estas primeras.
The total investment of all these first measures taken is going to exceed. You see it there. There is a mistake. It is not 10.27 billion, but 10.6 billion euros. We will give you the exact and concrete breakdown this afternoon so that you have these amounts. There are 10.6 billion euros for this first response of the first of the phases of this immediate response plan of reconstruction and relaunching of the Valencia region.
Meanwhile, at least 89 people are still missing from the floods in Valencia. Thousands of troops are involved in search and rescue operations, but hopes of finding survivors are fading. Of the 217 people who died in the flooding, only 133 have been identified so far. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has fired his defense minister Yoav Gallant. Yet Netanyahu cited what he calls a crisis of trust for his decision. He appointed Foreign Minister Israel Katz to succeed Gallant. Gallant and Netanyahu have clashed for months over the war with Hamas in Gaza. Gallant has said the war lacked clear direction, while Netanyahu asserted that the fighting will continue until Hamas is wiped out.
נדרש אמון מלא בין ראש הממשלה לשר הביטחון.
In the midst of a war, more than ever, full trust is required between the Prime Minister and the Minister of Defense. Unfortunately, although in the first months of the war there was such trust and there was very fruitful work, during the last months this trust cracked. Significant gaps were discovered between me and the Minister of Defense Gallant in the management of the campaign, and these gaps were accompanied by statements and actions that contradict the decisions of the government and the decisions of the cabinet.
Many in Israel aren't happy with the firing of Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Thousands took to the streets of Tel Aviv to denounce Prime Minister Netanyahu's decision.
Tonight is a spontaneous outburst of rage because we have had enough. It's for almost 400 days, and now in the middle of a war, the Prime Minister that promised that you can't change the Prime Minister in the middle of the war is firing the Minister of Security. This is ludicrous. The whole government should go home, should go actually to jail. They are traitors. They are betraying the hostages that are living in the tunnel, that are dying in the tunnel for 400 days.
I'm here tonight because the government is again failing us. In the middle of a war, they are really firing a minister that is the only minister that we thought he cares. He cares for the people that are abducted in Gaza, and he cares for the soldiers, and he really cares for the country. Now, Netanyahu has fired him, and we feel completely helpless, And I hope everybody comes out and says the government, Netanyahu, once again is failing us. Once again. This is completely outrageous.
Up next, the world's first wooden satellite built by Japanese researchers finally heads to space. You're watching World Newsfeed here on BNC. Welcome back. Actors Jennifer Lopez and Jarrell Jones jet to London for a special UK screening of their upcoming biographical sports drama, Unstoppable. Walking the red carpet in the British capital, Lopez said her thoughts were back home in America, where millions of voters are deciding who will be their next president. Lopez, who was born in New York to Puerto Rican presidents, or rather parents, has repeatedly voiced support for Vice President Kamala Harris.
I know. It's a very important day back in the States. You know, my whole goal was to inspire and empower people to understand that they matter and that their vote counts and their voice counts and they have power in this country, and that's what the whole country is based on, and to not forget that and to not sit this one out, and to remind people of just facts, you know, not to bring anybody down, it wasn't about that for me. It was really about, here are the facts, here's where we're at. You love your kids, just like this movie. You love your life, your children. You have to fight for that.
In Virginia, a local cafe took a different route in encouraging Americans to vote. It whipped up cakes and breads with the words "vote" and the face of Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris. And the treats quickly sold out.
Kamala wins today. We're hoping and praying. Also, getting people to vote for today is our main goal today.
And have you been selling out?
So we have sold out. These are our last couple that we have in storage for the rest of the day today.
Our goal is to make people smile, to bring enjoyment. And, I employ people on both sides of party lines. So, as a business owner, it's the most important thing for me is to take care of my employees. So I want to create a culture of honor among the staff, a culture that's supportive of all people, protecting, our ability to work together.
And before we go, the world's first wooden satellite has been successfully launched into space. Take a look.
As it orbits from darkness to sunlight. The LignoSat is a palm-sized satellite developed by Kyoto University and home builder Summit Satellite, built by scientists in Japan, headed into space Monday atop a SpaceX rocket launched from NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Ital-Stein satellite burns up in the Earth's atmosphere at the end of its life, with much less pollution too compared to metal ones. The Kyoto University research team has high hopes for the test, which is one step in the longer term on the Moon and Mars. Patients such as
And that's all for now. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Raine Musñgi. Catch up with us again tomorrow when we bring you the world in 30 minutes only on World Newsfeed. Follow the Money comes next. Keep it here on BNC.